Today on the Nerdy Gritty, we talk about the comics we got at Free Comic Book Day 2018.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I'm Dez.
And I'm Fox.
And we are actually in the middle of E3 season. We're not going to talk about it much.
Yeah, it's Monday of E3.
And so there's still some more to come, and it's like early Monday in E3. There's still Sony conference still to come, the PC one's going. So we're not talking about it that much.
Right.
We're going to wait till it's all ready and done with. But as of what you've seen right now, I want you to tell me one thing that you're like so excited about.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you this on this episode that we're recording right now is going to come out after our E3 one. So anyway, the only thing I've actually watched is the
EA,
and it was so underwhelming, but not really. It was about exactly what I thought.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but it was just the crowd was so uninvolved.
I didn't care about anything, and I was shocked that they put a mobile game in there.
Yeah, me
10
too.
minutes of a live demo.
Yeah, and that's more what it would sure, you got a mobile game. I would have been it would have made sense to me if that was a buffer video for when they're getting prepped for whatever's actually. But a 10-minute live presentation of a mobile game.
The best thing, though, I saw the trailer, the teaser for Doom Eternal, and that got me freaking hyped.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, for me, it's not indie anymore because EA is backing them, but the quote-unquote indie stuff of Unravel 2.
Yeah.
Of course. Really happy about that. And then Sea of Solitude was another one they talked about that looks really good.
That one. Oh, was that an EA thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I need to go back and look.
And it was, when they talked about it, it was just, there wasn't much gameplay or anything. It was just a boat that was floating. And then all of a sudden it got real dark and everything kind of it's got kind of this Silent Hill vibe to it. Yeah. And everything got kind of weird and dark. So yeah, but for me, I think the one that thus far I'm most excited about, that just looks the coolest to me, is Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
I didn't play the first one.
Me neither.
But I've seen it and I know a lot about it. And we got a little bit of gameplay footage. I mean, literally probably 30 seconds of gameplay footage.
Sure.
But even just the trailers and the videos are really, really well polished. Really good videos. So, cool. But other than that, Unravel 2 and
Solitude.
Sea of Solitude looks real good.
Right.
How about you? Oh, Doom. That's right.
Right.
We already
Doom
talked
Eternal.
about that. Yeah.
More demons. I want to kick more demons in the face.
What else have you been up to?
I've seen a movie this week. My mother-in-law's been in town, so been doing all that stuff with her. But we went and saw a movie. Went and saw Ocean's 8, which was, if you liked Ocean's 11, 12, or 13, you'll like Ocean's 8. Honestly, I didn't really have any opinion on it beforehand, even though, or I think probably a negative one, simply because it wasn't directed by Steven Soderbergh, who directed all three of the other ones. But this just felt like another one. It was a little less convoluted. 11, 12, and 13 are convoluted in a fun way, where they're very complicated and don't give you the full picture, just the bits and pieces. This one was less so. It was more straightforward, and I didn't like the characters had less personality. They basically were all just the best at what they do and didn't really have any quirks or anything like that for the most part, which was whatever. It was fun. It was a fun movie. If you liked 11, 12, and 13, you'd like this.
See, for me, Ocean's 11, the reboot, Ocean's 11 was an 8. It was a good movie. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Ocean's 12 was a 6.5.
12 was disappointing.
And Ocean's 13 was a 5.
I like 13 more than 11.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think 13's the best one.
Man, to me, they just got... because at the end of the day, for me, it was this mindset of, I know they're going to succeed.
Sure.
And I know that...
Yeah, but did you ever think in 11 they wouldn't?
I thought that maybe something would happen or something wouldn't go as planned, or they'd have to but at the end they're oh my gosh, they planned everything. That was awesome.
That's how all three of them are.
Well, that's how the first one was, because that's not, I've actually saw the one with Frank Sinatra with the Rat Pack, a long time ago, and it's not like that. Have you ever seen it?
Nope.
No, I mean, this one, it's hilarious. Like, they go through all this and everything goes wrong and one of the guys dies and they end up having to hide the money in his coffin and to actually get it out of there. And they're like, okay, now let's go collect it at his funeral. And then they find out he's being cremated. Roll credits.
That's great.
It's wonderful.
That's a funny ending.
I love it.
It just sounds like they used the name for name recognition, basically.
Exactly.
Very different.
Yeah, and so...
But 8 was fun. It was the same thing where it's like, I don't want to spoil anything. I was a little disappointed at the end. I like when my main reason why I don't like 12 as much is because at the end of the thing, like, it's revealed to you that they were doing something completely different that they never gave you even any hint that was happening. It was just like, oh, okay. Instead of like if you're paying attention, you can see all the little details and maybe like they're doing some things that lead up to what's happening at the end of 11 and 13.
Right.
And if you're clever, even after a couple viewings, you can be like, okay, that's there.
Yeah,
that's there.
I
That's
see
there.
It now, yeah.
Yep, I get it. 12, that's literally impossible.
Right.
Because what happens is not hinted at in any way. And 8 was the same way as that.
Okay.
It didn't give you a chance to be clever. It was just like, oh, by the way, this happened.
Yeah, and that's poor writing.
It was revealed to characters in the movie and also to the audience, where the audience should be able to feel like they're in on the joke, like in on what's going on in a heist.
To me, that's good detective writing when you you feel like you have an idea at the end, and maybe you're right or maybe you're wrong, but like there were clues throughout the book.
Exactly.
But if at the end they're like, twist that you never knew,
you literally could not know,
then
it's kind of disappointing. Other than that, it was a real fun movie. Like, humor was good, real subtle. Like, the whole heist thing was really fun to watch.
Yeah. And it always is. It's fun to watch.
It was good. I recommend it. Maybe wait for Redbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched Whatever Happened to Monday. Or no, just What Happened to Monday. And it's a Netflix original movie that I really enjoyed.
Oh, yeah?
So, you saw the second Sherlock Holmes, right? Do you remember it much?
Game of Shadows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the gypsy that
I loved the gypsy
with them?
Scene, yes.
Do you remember the girl?
Yeah.
She's the star of this movie.
Okay.
So it's a dystopian future in which all of the world's food has come on a massive shortage. And so the first thing they do is like massively GMO everything. But in this massively GMO everything, there's been one side effect. Single births are no longer a thing. Now it's like minimum triplets up to like octuplets or dectuplets.
Interesting.
Yeah, and like it's just because all the food has been created to grow, so when you eat it, you're now created to grow things. Yeah, and so that's just one of the premises.
It's a concept.
So the second part of the premise is, so now they've limited everything to one baby.
So you
have one baby and they cryo freeze the rest.
Huh.
It's for a day that when finally, I mean, you find out more.
Sure.
But yeah.
This sounds like a twist-heavy movie.
The premise is that there are septuplets that are born illegally, so 7, and the mom dies in birth, the dad's not there, so it's just the grandfather that raises them, and he names them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he is an engineer, and he engineers like all of their passports and all of their like wristband, everything, to have cameras and whatnot, so that they can each only go out on the days of their name.
Interesting.
And they exist as
they considered to be the same person.
They exist as the same person.
Weird.
And then they come back and they have video of their entire day, and they just talk about it, and they like then
inform everybody what happened, what they did.
And then one day, Monday doesn't come back.
Huh.
And it's just like, okay, so it's Tuesday now, but Monday is still out there.
Yeah.
Can Tuesday go?
What's going to happen? It's an interesting concept.
And
I'll
so
probably watch it.
I really recommend you watch it. I liked it a lot, mostly because all 7 girls are kind of archetypal.
Okay.
So they all have like a main theme. Like Wednesday is athletic girl, and Friday is shy computer girl, and Saturday is party girl. But even with that said, it's one actress playing all 7 roles.
I can't remember her name.
And she does a fantastic job. They are clearly individuals with all their own quirks.
That's awesome.
And at no point do you really tell yourself, Oh, right. It's all the same actors. Like, no, they feel like all individual people.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So what happened to Monday? I highly recommend that you watch it.
Nice.
So, but when I'm not watching movies recently, I have been trying to catch up on my comics that we got on Free Comic Book Day.
Sure, me too.
So Fox and I, Free Comic Book Day 2018, in Joplin, there's only like one comic book store. So
it's 2017.
Or, well, on 27th. Oh, right, 27th. Anyway, for Joplin, Kyle Fox was in college. He lived in a town called Joplin. Yes. There's like one comic book shop, and that's it.
There's two places that sell comics, and one that actually like is a comic shop.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that shop actually has like a really pretty big monopoly event, and it's
a great shop.
Like 100 people that go and things like that.
Like the town goes there to get comics.
Yeah. So Fox and I were geared up for Free Comic Book Day in Portland. But there's probably 30 comic book shops in Portland.
15, 20, like a lot more.
A lot more. And so we went and we were, as far as it being an event, we were a little underwhelmed, unfortunately.
There were people, a decent amount of people at both that we went to, but and one of them had like an artist or an author there. But it wasn't really it wasn't Joplin. Joplin, like we have in Joplin, there's a pretty popular author who writes, or an artist.
Right.
He draws a few books and he's a writer too. For Image, but he also did the art for like the Iron Man Civil War storyline. Like he's a pretty popular guy. So he always comes and does free sketches, literally for everybody, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll get somebody else. He does a good sale, like all of his back issues are buy one get one free essentially, or half off basically. The local high school like art club, comics club will come and do sketches, and like you can just talk to. It's really cool. Yeah, and this was so being here. It was a little underwhelming. Oh, here's your comics, now get out.
And I mean, you can shop if you want.
But also there's really 100 people in this time. Yeah.
So we got 10 comics per shop, and we hit up 2 shops, and so we got 20 comics each. Yeah. And we've been reading through them. And if you don't know what Free Comic Book Day is, if you're not really a comic fan, Free Comic Book Day is a point where it's May, or it's not May 5th, it's like the first Saturday of every May. And it was May 5th this year. And what it is it's literally free comic books. Yeah. And comic book companies, they send out and they're trying to represent their brand or one of their issues or something like that.
They will typically send out like the first issue of a series to get you interested in it, and then hopefully you'll buy more.
An origin story or something like that. Yeah. So you get a lot of different peaks at everything.
There's a very wide variety. A lot of different shops. Variety. Like there's a shop in here, or a publisher from Australia in one of these, which is pretty cool. Oh, Tank Girl. Tank Girl is an Australian Titan Comics. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, everything from, there was Miraculous, the tale of Ladybug and Cat Noir, which is a cartoon that my kids really like, and they had a comic book there, and so I picked it up for my kids, as well as Legend of Korra had a comic, and
there's usually a lot of like a brand, like licensed comic lines or issues there. But also you get some stuff you would never hear about, really. Like, I would have never known what Berlin is.
I would have never known what probably 90% of those were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to take some time today to talk about just a few comics that we saw, what we thought about them, have a conversation. Fox and I tried to spread out what we got so that...
A little bit. We kind of just picked on our own and just wanted to see what we picked.
So I will say we probably... like 50% matched and 50% didn't match, I would be my guess.
Sure.
And so we'll have some things that we can tell each other about and some things that we can discuss. And so our kind of thought process here is we're just going to pick some issues. Specifically, we picked 10 issues each that we wanted to discuss a little bit.
We may or may not get to all of them.
Right. And we'll cross over on some of them, I'm sure.
Sure.
And then just to answer some questions as well from each other, like which was our favorite one.
Right.
So, Fox, what's your first pick here?
I'm going to start off with something very mainstream.
Right.
But also personal to me. Spider-Man, specifically Ultimate Spider-Man, was the very first comic series I had a subscription to.
Right.
I actually had issue number 1. Really wish I still had it. Probably wouldn't be worth a whole lot, but I just wish I had it. The Spider-Man first movie was a big deal in my childhood. I love Spider-Man. I played all the Spider-Man games growing up. So one of them was The Amazing Spider-Man, one of the issues you could choose from. It's issue 1 of the new run of Amazing Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I didn't really super enjoy it.
Yeah, neither did I.
Yeah, there's a lot more like, it's very lighthearted.
It is.
Which is fine. Spider-Man's lighthearted. He's about jokes. But this issue was basically, it started off with him and somebody else, I forget who. Roommate looking for an apartment in Manhattan, which is great. Spider-Man's like a New Yorker, and he's like dealing with things other than being Spider-Man. It's great. But then like a bunch of villains show up and he fights them, and Kingpin then shows up, and you find out Kingpin is actually the mayor of New York now, which apparently happened in Daredevil or something. And then at the end, which really was the worst part to me, was there's a Spider-Man villain named Boomerang, who was one of the villains that showed up that he fought. Boomerang shows up, and his other roommate was like, yeah, we can rent this place if we rent out the third room to this guy. And it's Boomerang. Right. And it's like, oh no. And I was just like, this...
You could just hear like the wacky, like, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, I didn't like the art. It's very cartoony. I like a little bit more like realism to my art in most comics, unless it's like thematically appropriate, you know? And I guess it would be for this. I don't know. I really just wasn't interested in reading anymore. I was like, okay, it's done. I don't need to read this.
This is something that happened, the Avengers one and this one, with both of them. It's something that Marvel's kind of doing right now, and I'm just really confused about why they're doing this. But typically people don't decide, you know what? I'm going to read comics and get into comics and have zero prior knowledge, and they just grab comics and read them. Yes. Typically, it's like they watch the cartoon or they see the movies, or there's some sort of like impetus. Outside.
Yes. Yeah. The first Spider-Man movie that was what it was for me.
Yeah. And so to go in with general knowledge about Spider-Man and then to read this comic, there's just no connection at all.
Sure.
Like, I read that comic thinking to myself, what? Yeah. This isn't the Spider-Man that I... No, it has nothing to do with the Spider-Man. Right. What is going on here? And so there was that, and then it was kind of silly. You know what I mean?
It was very goofy.
Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of, like, I don't know why, but the jokes that Spider-Man made felt like obnoxious rather than like quippy. Right. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just my sense of humor, but yeah, I was just kind of disappointed.
Obnoxious?
Also,
yeah, that's your sense of humor.
It is. Also, Rhino is just super lame. Always super lame. I hate him as a villain. All right, well, let's move on.
Yeah, for me, my first one was Barrier. Now, see, this is where I wish I actually would have brought... I forgot this is what we were talking about today, so I can't tell you, like, oh, here, you know what?
I have my stack right in front of me.
Yeah, you do. Whatever. I can do this right here. But Barrier, the reason I wanted to bring it up was because it did something... First of all, it was okay. As far as the comic itself goes, it was all right. I enjoyed it. It was kind of... I don't want to say cliche, because it was like... space, like aliens are abducting people type. Oh. So it wasn't a new idea, but it's how they approached it that was new.
Yeah.
The word Barrier, it's Image Comics, that's what I want to say. So it's by Image Comics, and the reason it struck me is because the word barrier is describing a lot of different things. First of all, it's describing literal aliens. There's a barrier between us and the understanding of these literal aliens that are abducting people.
Gotcha.
And what's going on. But also, it's right on the border of Texas and Mexico. And there is a lot going on both sides. And there is this, like, palpable barrier between the cultures and what's going on both.
Right.
Finally, it's bilingual. It's a completely bilingual comic. They speak Spanish and they speak English, and there are no translations in there for either at all.
Okay, do you mean by bilingual, do you mean that everything in it is shown in both languages? Or is it like people speak both languages in the book?
So if it's ever on the Texas side, everybody's speaking English.
Okay.
If it's ever on the Mexico side, everybody's speaking Spanish.
That makes sense. Okay.
And the English doesn't have into Spanish translations, and the Spanish doesn't have into English translations.
That makes sense.
I am bilingual-esque-ish.
Sure.
You know, I speak conversational Spanish. I'm not fluent, but growing up Mexican, I know a decent amount of Spanish. So I was able to read it and understand it, but even there were some things that I was like, I think this is what they're saying, whatnot. But
sure.
At the end of the day, the story itself just wasn't intriguing to me. But I really liked how even to the actual reader, they kind of break the fourth wall with this barrier, and the comic itself is read vertically, not horizontally. So the binding of the book is the top. and kind of you open it like a calendar, and you open it upwards like a calendar to read this comic. And so there was just this theme of a barrier you have to overcome, whether it's language, whether it's a border, whether it's the book you're reading, or whether it's literal aliens. There was a theme of barriers.
Yeah, it sounds interesting at the least. Yeah, maybe if the story isn't the best.
And that's probably the way I describe it. It was interesting at the least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The next one I want to talk about is kind of the complete opposite of The Amazing Spider-Man. Like just in its how you approach it. It's called The Meta Baron.
The Boring Slug Man?
Yes.
Woman. Boring Slug Woman.
Boring Slug Woman.
Yeah.
It's called The Meta Baron. It's written. My main interest.
He knows he's a baron.
He knows he's a baron. My main interest was because it was written by Alejandro Jodorowsky, who is a freaking bonkers director. Like his movies are the essence of like abstract art. They are weird.
Okay.
They're very strange.
Would there be one that I or any of our listeners
The one that
know?
you may have heard of is called The Holy Mountain.
Nope.
Yep. Nobody's ever heard of anything else or that one, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, that was my main interest.
Who makes this? Let's give credit.
Sorry, yeah, right. This is Humanoids? Is that what the publisher is, I guess? Yeah, I'm going to go with that. That's what the logo is on the front. Humanoids Comics. It might be just Alejandro Jodorowsky or something. Anyway, this is a sci-fi to the max book. It is like Dune level of alternate world. Everything is completely different and has its own specific name. Like, there is no connection with Earth or normal things that you would ever recognize. And I'm down for that. Mm-hmm. I love super complicated worlds. The hardest part about reading this was that they give you book 3. They start you on the 3rd issue.
That's weird.
The weirdest part about that, though...
Who would do that? Fox with with Firefly?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh, Fox. Yeah.
The weirdest part, though... the next weirdest part...
Yeah, I'll say that wasn't the weirdest part.
Is that... on the other side of the cover is the cover for book 1. And I'm not sure why. Because it starts you like inside. The first thing is...
Wait. Maybe this is like Memento.
I didn't see that.
And it goes back.
Maybe, but probably. Actually.
And the last page is the first issue.
No, that would just be terrible. Anyway, the first thing it does is the story so far. And you're like, just give me the first issue, man. Like, other than that, I kind of liked it. Like, it was fun having
What's it about?
It's, I'm trying to remember now. Because it was so weird and foreign and everything.
Sentence.
Essentially, this Meta Baron, I'm trying to remember correctly, and this is probably wrong, but the Meta Baron is somebody who goes to this other planet. It reminds me of Dune heavily because it's all about this fuel or substance called, not Elysium, but a word like that. And he's there to secure it. It reminds me of like The Spice Must Flow, from Dune. Other than that, there's like robots and like, this is the Meta Baron. Like, okay, here's the title of issue 3. The Meta Baron. Book 3. The Meta Guardianess and the Techno Baron. Yeah. Like, Techno Baron sounds pretty awesome, but...
The Techno Baron.
Yeah, anyway, I actually am interested in reading some of that. I probably will never do that, though. It's one that I'm like, okay, that was kind of cool, but I got other stuff I'm reading, and this has not piqued my interest enough to actually continue, like, to go buy more. So...
my next one is one that I am interested in picking up to read with my kids.
Ooh.
It's Arcana Studios' Howard Lovecraft's Big Book of Summer Fun. Howard is the H.P. Lovecraft, the writer of Arkham Horror and the Arkham Horror, like Call of Cthulhu, all kinds of things like that.
Yes,
and it's about young Howard and his father, who has dabbled in the occult. And Howard gets his dad's journals, and he and his pet Cthulhu go on wacky adventures together. But they don't shy away from, and they encounter a Shoggoth, a devourer of flesh.
Ooh.
And like things like that. And so like they approach this with this idea of like wacky fun, but it all involves like the Necronomicon and Elder Signs and like real HP Lovecraftian themes and things like that. And to me, if you love good literature and you love that kind of like psychological horror of HP Lovecraft, and you kind of want that with your family, or you kind of want to like whatever.
If you're some kind of weirdo like
that, it's really easy to like. It's a real fun way to ease people into it. Yeah, it really is. Like
gateway book.
It was fun. It was playful, but at the same time, I didn't feel like it was like just shying away from some of the reality of the Lovecraftian horror of it. So I got that one also. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah. I'll talk about A Brief History of Tank Girl.
That's one of mine too, so we will talk about that.
I literally had never read it. I'd heard the name Tank Girl. I knew there was a movie. I knew it was a comic book character.
Right.
I had no idea of what Tank Girl was, which is why I wanted to read this. Essentially, the book it's Tank Girl's birthday.
Right.
And apparently she has a tradition of punching this guy in the face.
On her birthday
every year, and she's disappointed that she can't find him this year. Like, the guy's caught on, and so he, like, hid from her. And so she's, like, kind of sad on her birthday. And then, like, one of her friends does, like, let me tell you about all the amazing things in your life so you're not sad. And it's basically, for any reader, it's like, here's what Tank Girl has always been about. And it's very fourth wall breaking. It's like, then there was that movie. And it was a low life in your point, or a low point in your life. And it's like, okay, well, sure. And that was kind of interesting. I am 0% interested in any Tank Girl ever. I found it terrible.
Yeah.
It was so lame and boring.
Tank Girl, so I knew of, and like I saw a few issues of Tank Girl back in the 90s when I was first really getting into comics.
Sure. It's 90s tastic.
It is. It's exactly that. But
yes.
It's like totally like post-apocalyptic dystopia.
Right.
And it was like one of the very first like, here's a strong woman lead.
Yes.
But that's not noble hero, but she's like, it was way punk rock.
Yes.
You know, and it, like very, very much like leading that punk rock thing. And so people thought it was cool for the sake of it being punk rock chick with a tank, and she goes around Mad Max style blowing things up.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. And now that people are kind of over that.
Yeah, it felt like a girl, like GRRL power, like punk band, where I'm like, look, I'm not saying you can't do this. I'm just not interested. Like
it lost a lot of its depth over the years.
Yes, it was so shallow.
Yeah,
and all of her like humor of like, I don't care and I'm just gonna punch people. That's not funny to me, and I'm not interested at all.
And again, it's just trying to be punk rock when it's not cool anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
This is Titan Comics, by the way.
It reminds me of, where is it? Another Image Comics. It's Street Angel. So Street Angel is a comic about a world in which everybody is trained in the martial arts in some way. Like everybody in the world. But the best ninja in the world is a homeless girl named Street Angel.
Sure.
And so she does girl stuff, and again, it's kind of punk rock. She rides a skateboard everywhere and whatever else.
Yep.
And this specific issue was about her finding a stray dog and people trying to like beat the dog up, and she beats them up instead, and then she goes on adventures with the dog and whatever else. But the book itself, again, first of all, I kind of liked the art in as much as it mixes this, like, it's a show about sixth graders. Haha, how playful. But at the same time, like, these sixth graders are also beating the crap out of each other. You know, like, at one point, she does a kickflip over a trash can, or like a dumpster, an entire dumpster, comes out of the air and punches a kid in the face. And I guess it's pretty hardcore. Grade. Yeah. And it's pretty fun, and it's hardcore, and it's playful. And I liked that juxtaposition.
Okay.
But the series itself, it seemed like the book itself was talking about how There's no background to any of it all. Like, and they actually say it, like, we don't know why she's like this, and we don't know what's going on that she's like this, but she is. And we follow her adventures. So it really just seems like it's to me, I call these Sunday comics, like Sunday newspaper comics, where like there is no continuity.
It's about the joke rather than the premise,
the punchline of what's happening here, and there's no continuity. And with no continuity and no story, I just don't feel like there's a lot of depth.
Yeah,
I like having one issue of Street Angel, and I'll probably never read another one.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I know you also read this one, Lady Mechanica.
Yep, and we'll probably come back to that.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay, this is Joe Benitez's Lady Mechanica. It's like, I guess, his label, I suppose, because it's Benitez Productions on the back. This was, for me, I felt like this one, as I was reading it, I was like, this is Steve's jam. This is Dez's.
It was
right up his alley.
It was indeed that.
All up in your alley. Lady Mechanica. It's about a a lady who is mechanical, like has like arms and legs that are like steampunk, like gear work.
Right.
She's like
super steampunk,
an android basically,
but
steampunk.
I mean, so clear on that.
About her trying to figure out where she came from. And this issue is, it's two stories.
I like this so much that I want to correct her and be like, actually,
it's two stories. The first one is her like catching this so-called demon thing and finding out it also came from where she came from.
Right.
And then it being killed and she's upset about it. And it's kind of like an introduction into what's going on. The other one is called 2, and it's about her basically running into another one of her. And it was okay. Like I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was like, oh, that was kind of cool. I'm not gonna read more of it. The art was kind of annoying to me. I didn't like her design.
I'll fight you.
Not like the not the art itself. The art itself was pretty like this cover is really cool.
It's really good.
Right. I didn't like her design as a character. It reminded me of like the stereotypical comic book lady, and I'm not here to say that you can't do that. All comic book characters, at least in superhero world, are like like men and women both are like exaggerated.
The attractive peak.
Exactly. Yeah. All superheroes are the most attractive.
Whether male or female.
Right. This is definitely in your alley, and I didn't hate it, but again, it wasn't my favorite.
We'll come back to that, so I won't say much now, because I'm going to come back to that.
Sure.
I'm going to combine two right now. Okay. Because there are similar themes. Malika and Black Hammer. Okay. So Malika is about a demigoddess, an African demigoddess. And at this point, think as if all of Africa was kind of like Wakanda. But there are some sections that are like in turmoil and trying to be overthrown by an army, by like an insurgent army.
So like regular Africa.
Yeah. But modernized. Modernized.
Like, okay.
So there's a demigoddess that's named Malika, and she has returned after 1,000 years or whatever, and she's trying to restore peace to Africa. Okay. But she comes back and she's like, yeah, but I've been gone for 1,000 years, so I don't know what's going on. And there's a girl with super speed who is like, I'll help you. Why did she have super speed? We don't know. We never find out. It's a one-issue comic. They're trying to introduce you to Malika.
Sure.
And then there's the Insurgents is led by another African woman, and Insurgents is led by her, and she can teleport as her power. And so they go on talking about that and whatnot. And so the story didn't have much depth, really. No. I mean, it just wasn't very intriguing, and the art was moderate to moderate plus, and it was the story and mostly the writing. Like, the story was fine, the writing was just really kind of ham-handed. It had a lot of the Silver Age problem of stating their feelings, this makes me angry,
very expository dialogue,
and it was kind of rough around the edges, and it was very obvious that they were trying to be progressive. I'm all for that. Like, that's awesome, but again, ham-handed in it. Black woman lead with black woman sidekick against black woman insurgent in Africa. And all of it was very much like very clearly trying to do something that is going to hit as many buttons as they can of that thing. And Black Hammer seemed kind of similar. So what Black Hammer is about, and again, it was the second part. Black Hammer was the second part of the Overwatch comic, and Overwatch is Dark Horse. So I'm going to guess that Black Hammer is also Dark Horse, but the Overwatch comic was fine, whatever, Overwatch. But Black Hammer was the in the second half of it, and it just begins with, like, in the year 3000, there's Super Team, and the Super Team characters, the names were so bad, I was wondering if this was going to end up being a comedic.
Like a joke?
A joke, yeah, literally. It was all like, hi, Firaga boy. Hey, you're playing some basketball with lightning lass, aren't you? You kids have fun. And just, like, it was, and like one dude, like, the android guy, or what, I don't know what his name was, but it was as lame as that. He's walking around, and he has to, of course, say the name of every single person he meets. Just so we know them, and they're all so, and I'm reading this thinking to myself, have we trademarked all the names? Like, is that, why?
Are we out of superhero names?
And so it was just so bad. And then the android guy ends up in his room, and he's like, my real hobby, though, was studying what happened to the 21st century superhero team. They just disappeared, and we don't know where they are. They were led by Black Hammer, and we haven't seen them since then. And Black Hammer was a black guy who had a hammer. Think steel, but not with the armor. Yeah. and like, really on the nose. But, and so they kind of go into whatever happened to them, what's going on. But at the end of the day, the issue ends with, cool, now we're going to try out new members for the team. And a girl walks up, and she's a black girl, and she has the hammer. And they're like, where did you get that? And that's how it ends.
My great-grandpa.
None of it was well written.
Yeah.
It was just badly written. Yep. And again, clearly was supposed to be like the black female lead is about to take and step up here. And like, I want that. That's cool. That's a good thing. Let's empower this. Like, that's why Black Panther was so rad.
Right.
They had such natural, powerful black women in that. But the writing was so poor.
Yeah.
And the art was so moderate.
Yeah, it takes both. It takes both things to be interesting.
So yeah, Malika and Black Hammer, I saw what they were trying to do, but both fell short of it.
Yeah. We might go a little long on this one, but I'm going to cut down. I got 3 more I want to talk about.
So go ahead.
I'm going to first talk about one of the 2. I read the James Bond one sentence. It was a James Bond comic.
Right.
Whatever. I read the Ghost in the Shell Global Neural Network the issue that they gave, which is Kodansha Comics. I've never read or watched any Ghost in the Shell anything ever. Mm-hmm. I've always been very interested in it. But this is my introduction to that world, and it was fine. Like, there was nothing like really unique about it. It was just kind of like a superhero does a thing, or like a secret agent. It basically felt like a James Bond story.
Oh, that's
except
cool.
for this James Bond character is just protecting this one guy, and then he gets kidnapped. And she teams up with another person, and there's betrayals and all these things. Mm-hmm. It's just like a spy thriller, basically.
Yeah.
So whatever. Like,
I felt the Street Fighter I picked up, Street Fighter Ultra 2 or whatever comic, and it was everything you'd expect out of a Street Fighter thing.
Sure.
Ken has a secret power that he got when he went to the Darkstalkers world, and I love anime, so I was like, oh really?
You have my interest.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it didn't do anything special.
Yeah, these last 2 I'm going to talk about,
Go ahead.
The first one, they are both, I love them.
Oh, all right.
Strangers in Paradise. It's a Terry Moore comic. It is by no means a new comic. It's been going on for a long time. It's an old comic. This is like the first issue in a new series called Strangers in Paradise, called XXV. I don't know why it's called that. I don't know if this is like the 25th year of Strangers in Paradise or something like that, but I enjoyed it. It was like a spy thriller kind of thing. Like, basically, I have a short. I should have had this open already. I have a short, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Here we go. A man's SIM card is stolen from his phone. When his wife finds out what the thief looks like, she goes into hiding, as in the wife does.
Mm-hmm.
we find out she was part of a government cover-up plot involving a super collider that exploded, and it's imperative that she be found. But it was like involving these characters that it just on the like it just started with them being very mundane, and then you're just kind of learning things about them, which was kind of cool. The artwork was okay, like it was passable. It was fine. Like I'm kind of interested in reading the series though now.
I think a lot of what we're getting at here is, hey, look, guys, if you're gonna write a story, whether comic book or otherwise, make people
write
interesting people, and then put those people in a story. Don't just make a story and try and put Black Hammer in it. don't do that.
Yeah, write people we care about, and then put them in situations that are as crazy as you want them to be.
Before you get to your next one, I'm just going to give a quick honorable mention to Shadow Man was an interesting one because Shadow Man. A Shadow Man is somebody who does kind of dark voodoo, like in the Creole, Louisiana area.
I am one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But I liked it a lot because as I was reading through it, they referenced a lot of the voodoo religion, and they did it very appropriately, and it was well done. And it has good and it has evil, and obviously, I don't believe or agree with the voodoo religion, but I appreciate culture a lot. And where the last two that I talked about really swung and missed trying to represent the culture and to be progressive in that, I feel like this one did a really good job of saying, you know what? We want to make a story about somebody's culture. And it's going to be comic book. And yes, he's going to have superpowers. And yes, he's going to be a hero with a dark past. But really, we want to represent this culture properly. And I thought Shadow Man did that really well. It was very cool.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Berlin.
Last one I want to talk about. This one was by far my favorite out of all of them. For lots of reasons. It's a Drawn and Quarterly, which is the publisher, I believe, book.
Drawn and Quarterly?
Drawn and Quarterly.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yes. It's called Berlin. I appreciate it for lots of reasons. The artwork is very simple and very stark.
Oh yeah.
It kind of looks like it would be in a magazine, like from the 80s or 70s. Yeah.
Like a Sunday morning comic.
Kind of, yeah. It is one issue from the first book. I appreciate Drawn and Quarterly because there are already decades of this story.
Oh wow!
It seemed as though Drawn and Quarterly was like, "Hey, this is a great story. More people should read it. Let's put it out there."
That's awesome.
Even though it's been out for a long time, and they're trying to get more interest rather than try to stoke interest in something new,
right?
Which I really liked. Essentially, the first issue is about two people on a train going to Berlin. One of them is an artist and the other is a journalist, and they kind of just meet each other and talk. It is very heavy on the characters.
That's good.
This first issue is an intro to a series that on the back is described as a sweeping masterpiece charts Berlin through the rise of Nazism.
Oh.
And I really love it because there is a very small reference to the idea of Nazism in this. It's not even Nazism, it's just a guy making a joke about holding your hand up the Nazi salute. Yes. But it's just he just says about fascism, not about anyway, it's I got it because my wife loves historical fiction, where it's a dramatic story but set in the real world, and that's why I love it, because it feels like an actual story about people you like, but it's set in a world that is real, and you learn about that world through the eyes of these characters. And I will, for a fact, continue. I will buy this and read it.
Nice.
So good job, Drawn and Quarterly.
Yeah,
you accomplished your mission.
So the last two I want to talk about, one we already kind of touched on, was Lady Mechanica, which is a Benitez Productions comic, and Shadow Roads, which is an Oni Comics.
I read Shadow Roads.
Yeah. So these were the two that I were most intrigued of, and that I really, really liked. So Shadow Roads was the first one that I'll talk about because it's got an Arizona Western feel, like an actual Arizona Western feel. And there are 3 different people that it's kind of following. There is an American man and a Cherokee man, but the Cherokee man has knowingly been raised in the American culture. And so he keeps seeing these things of his past and or not of his past, but of his people.
Yeah.
But they're all on display, and the red man is,
right.
Look at the red man.
It starts in a museum.
Right.
With like a living tableau.
Right.
Actual people being used as on display.
Exactly. And so they have this, and then they also have a gunslinger who's on a horse, and he's talking to some other guy the entire way as he's traveling along. And then finally, there's just a woman. We don't know anything about her except that she meets the Cherokee and the American man on a train. These 3 people, other than when they meet on the train, these 3 sets of people don't really cross paths that much. But what they're all establishing in their own separate ways is where they are is in a gateway to the death, like the dead, the other world.
Yeah.
And things come out, and think kind of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer Western, where monsters come out and they gotta fight them and shoot them. But this is actually done again with more respect to culture.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so they really try and respect the Cherokee culture in this, and the culture, I believe it's Cherokee. I should probably look it up real quick. But they try and respect the Native American culture of the man that they're talking about here first.
Yeah, it never felt like it was exploiting the concept of like, look, it's Native Americans.
Or in fact, they did that, but they did it on purpose to say...
They talked about how Native...
Right.
Yes. The comic itself doesn't, but it comments on exploitation.
Exactly.
Yes.
It says this was a time in which it was exploited a lot, but here's the reality behind it.
Yes.
And I really liked that. I really like Westerns in general because I grew up in Arizona, born and raised in Arizona. And so I really liked that a lot. And so this is one that really intrigued me. The gunslinger guy and his partner, turns out his partner was a ghost the whole time, and he can talk to ghosts.
Right.
And like he just has this charge, like he knows that he has to fight, and he was looking for a woman who's like a very short woman is what he's looking for her, and she is a very good gunslinger as well. So Shadow Roads was the one that I was really interested in. And then Lady Mechanica was probably the one that was my favorite of them. Because, first of all, I just really like steampunk. Yep. I've been to a few steampunk conventions. I cosplay in steampunk.
Right.
I just really like that genre. And the art I thought was really, really good. What I liked about it is, you're correct in as much as she is drawn like a comic book woman.
Sure.
But... they don't have her in a miniskirt and, an open top. Like, it's not like Power Girl where there's the boob window.
Unnecessary, ridiculous boob window.
And things like that. She is covered the entire time.
Sure.
And they present her in 2 different ways. They present her, she's going out, and now she has steampunk corset and top and leather jacket, and she looks steampunk, but again, entirely covered.
Sure.
And then they present her as a lady. And at that point, she's not sexualized at all.
Right. It never felt like it inappropriate.
Right. At all.
For the setting.
And obviously in a steampunk genre, everybody's used to this. And kind of the story behind it is that she just woke up one day and doesn't remember her past, but she woke up with the most high-tech steam technology ever created, and she doesn't know where it came from or whatever.
Yeah. And
so it's got this mystery to it, but she's a likable, fun character, this rogue hero, and she's got a big heart, and she's got friends and whatever. I really enjoyed the story, and that's one that I will probably pick up, maybe some like collected works of or whatnot.
Sure.
So,
I would borrow that from you and read it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we each talked about our favorites. What about just art? What do you think was the best art, your favorite art that you came across?
I'm going to briefly go with 2 of them.
Okay.
For different reasons. Berlin's art was great. It was black and white, and it just felt like it matched the setting and tone perfectly.
Right.
It felt like I was reading a comic that was written from the time that it was, like, that it's set in.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great. But I also like the Meta Baron's art. It very well... it's either... I'd be surprised if it actually was painted, but it kind of has the feeling.
Yeah, that Alex Ross painting
kind
feeling.
of. A little less, like, dramatic or like a little less dramatic, I guess, than
right.
And I also don't know if it actually was painted, but I do really like what it looks like.
I'm actually going to go two different directions here. So on one side, there was Shadow Man, and to me,
that cover is really cool.
Yeah, the cover was very cool.
Anyway,
this one had the best art that actually was, a talent of art, like just as far as a technical measurement. To me, this was my favorite art in that it was supposed to be a very dark and like the Creole swamp, Louisiana swamp, but at the same time, they didn't shy away from adding color. There was a woman who did light magic voodoo. And so she would you'd see her hands moving. They communicated movement really well. It's a good thing that's difficult in comics. Yeah. Communicated movement really well. And then the bright pinks and yellows would come out. And then the fireflies would be greens and blues. And so they did this really great balance of beautiful art that was really oppressive. The art itself made you feel oppressed, and just like you're in a thick swamp, but also without being too how you get those movies with filters on them, DC Comics or movies, and everything just looks sad.
Yes,
it dark. It didn't do that. They wanted to make sure it had color and everything. So cool. I really like the art of that one. But on the other hand, I did really like the art of Street Angel.
Okay.
So Street Angel was the one that I said the story was just not great. It was kind of a punk rock thing. But the art, like I said, the art was meant to juxtapose the story that it's supposed to be sixth graders that are all ninjas and they all beat each other up and whatnot. And it was again, as far as technicalities go, the art isn't super technically difficult or whatever, but it's great. And the colors are vibrant and it's so much fun. Each panel that you go through is one that you are feeling the movements and you're feeling the energy that's in it. There was a lot of energy in each panel, and she's soaring through the air or she's running, you feel just energy going through this. And cool. That Street Angel is this girl that just has so much energy. She's trying to get it out.
Has a lot of energy most of the time,
it communicates that really, really well. So I really like the art of Street Angel.
Nice.
What would you say was your flat up least favorite? I dislike this.
What I've read, I completely mentioned one. What was it?
Tank Girl.
Tank Girl. Yeah, it was a struggle for me to get through. Yeah. I just didn't like her humor or I didn't like it. It had a Deadpool type vibe to me, where it was look how crazy and ridiculous I can be. Isn't that hilarious? And that's just never funny to me. It's not subtle or clever in any way. So, yeah, Tank Girl gives a big thumbs down from me.
For me, it was probably Black Hammer.
Yeah.
So it was the second half of the Overwatch comic, but it was just not great.
Yep.
So, well, any final thoughts on Free Comic Book Day 2018?
I love that we got 10 issues from each one. I have 5 from 2017. And I think I snagged a couple extra because I knew Jason who ran the place. So
right.
Or I think I happened to go to another place where they had them. But yeah, I think you got 3. And I don't know if that was just the venue or not, or just because it's become so much bigger or something. But I love that there were so many. I also love that there are comics I didn't like, because there's somebody out there who has never read comics, picked up Tank Girl, loved it, and will start reading comics. Yeah. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
And I love Free Comic Book Day. I love that every single publisher gets in on the operation. In fact, Marvel and DC are really they're not really much there. It's mostly lesser known things, or even just independent, one guy who does this stuff. I'll put this out there, and I love that.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. This is a great opportunity for anybody who has ever thought to themselves, maybe I'll get into comics.
It's free.
Free Comic Book Day. Go. And again, for us, we picked up 10 issues each, and we hit up 2 stores that were, 10 miles away from each other?
Yeah.
And we just drove to 2 different stores and picked up 10 comics at each place, so 20 comics, browsed through them, and I found at least 5 that I'm interested in, 2 that I'm probably going to go look for collected works on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Free Comic Book Day is good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Tell us what you think. If you went to Free Comic Book Day and read something we didn't talk about, tell us what your opinion on it was. If you've never read comics, we highly recommend you do it.
Yeah, it's a really good
and go to Free
medium.
Comic Book Day. Remember, first Saturday of every year is
first
Free Comic
Saturday
Book
of every
Day.
May.
Nope, every year. First Saturday of every May, right. Every year, go to your local shop. They all get these comics for free. Like, they don't have to pay for them, so everybody does it, and it's great. Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next week.
Remember, saved games, save lives.